Welcome, everybody. Good to be back in Raleigh after a couple of weeks in Florida, but everything's still the same. In fact, I see that we'll get a traffic light down at the end of Hardemont and St. Albans eventually. The poles at least are up. Yeah, the road's not there, but the lights are up.
Yeah.
First things first, I assume everybody got the minutes. I assume everybody read the minutes. And can I get a motion to accept the minutes? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Thank y'all. Thanks, Steve. Any discussion on the minutes? I included the attachments from the dam presentation and from Karen Ray's presentation, which looked really interesting. I thought, I hope it comes to fruition, because customer service for Raleigh definitely could use a big improvement, especially the quick fix. So it looks good. And I'm assuming we'll probably have her back in June, July, whenever it goes live. And well, the first hand exposure. And let's see. Oh, there's Nancy. All right. So let's move on with our Raleigh Police presentation.
Good evening. Last time I was here, we had the chiefs interviews and the public forum and all that. So of course, we all know it's Chief Boyce. That is our new police chief. So we're super excited for that. I'm very excited personally because we were partners many years ago. So he has done amazing for himself and going to be a great representation for the police department. So not much to report. Everything as 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago, same issues, I guess, per se. Traffic stops are up still, which is just amazing. Just a quick reminder of the blocking your cars and making sure that you are not tempting people looking in the cars and leaving valuables in there. I've always said, like I said before, double check yourself, always second guess yourself. If you think you're so sure that you left your car locked, go back and check, because sometimes we forget, but we're so sure that we did it the first time, and before we know it, we wake up in the morning, things are rummaged through, or cars gone and stuff like that. So we do have some spring events coming on as far as the community policing unit goes. We're going to be doing our recreation or engagement through sport and recreation programs that's starting in end of April into May. That'll lead into the summer programs and the big soccer camp that we have for the kids and going on all into the summer. So many things going on. So if anybody ever wants to have questions or any wants to participate in our events, please feel free, let me know. We would love to have a good turnout from the community. So any questions that I can answer.
Where are your events listed?
Facebook, all social media, Facebook, Instagram. But obviously the more direct communications, email me. And of course, I'm speaking with the North District, your district specifically events that we'll be doing. But yeah, you can easily give me a call, shoot me an email, let me know what's going on, or ask, and I can give you all the information where we're going to be, what time, and with who. Yes, sir.
Fun conversation to follow up from work. What percentage of the cars do you think that are stolen are manuals? Because our conversation at work was nobody under 30 could even steal these cars anymore.
Very low. Very low to almost none.
It's almost an anti-theft device now, isn't it?
It is a thing. I mean, people, I think the last time I've driven a manual stick shift vehicle, I think I was maybe 17. So I don't know if I can do it now. I'm not sure. But yeah, very low.
Funny conversation. Yeah.
It's a great question. I mean, most of the vehicles that do get stolen are automatic. I can say that. I mean, but a manual stick shift, rare that we recover or that even gets stolen. Yeah, great question. I'm sure I'm working. Yeah, for sure.
I've got one. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just a parking question. Bike lanes, in terms of when our designated bike lanes, is my understanding was there's not supposed to be parking in bike lanes.
Correct.
That is correct, okay.
And I'll tell you this, I got chewed out by bicycles because I have kids, so we're maneuvering cars. And I parked my car in a bike lane in front of my house and just happened to be a bicyclist came and said, move your car. I'm moving, I'm playing musical cars here. So, but I was actually in the right because the bike lanes are not 24 hours. At least on my street, they're 7 A to 5 P.
Okay.
Correction, 7 A to 7 P. And it's only Monday through Friday. So Saturday and Sundays, bike lanes are not enforced. People can park Saturday and Sunday on my street. And after 7 PM.
Does that vary from area to area? Or is
Yes.
that city?
Yes, because on my same street, up the street, further up the street, it's at 5 PM. It ends at 5 PM. Well, for me, don't know why. I have no idea why. A mile down the road, it's at 5 PM. And where I'm at, in my area, it's 7 PM.
So if it's not marked by signage, I guess that's the confusing part.
Mhm.
Because some places aren't marked by signage. And so does that mean the standard is what?
That's a good question, and I don't have that answer, and I can find out. I would assume it's almost like the speed limit. If there's not a posted speed limit, it's 35 miles an hour. If it's on a posted bike lane, we all know the bike rules, you can't park in it. But again, that's also depending on day of the week, right? So that's a great question, and I will find out that answer, because that is not a police, it's a police enforced, but it's not something that we focus on a lot. Such a great question. I can find that answer, because I need to know that too for my own, my own street. Yes, ma'am.
I was a little bit late, so I don't know if you touched on it, the big hockey game next week.
Yes, April 1st is the huge, Raleigh Police versus the fire department hockey game charity for Officer Gillick, who was injured, in the line of duty, a few weeks ago. I think that it's gonna be at 6 o'clock. I think 6
I
PM.
think it's at 7, because council can't go because we're in a meeting, so.
Okay, so 7,
At the same time.
yeah, 6 o'clock, doors open to the arena at Lenovo Center. I think it's free of charge, but you can buy merchandise for Officer Gillick and donations and stuff like that. Super huge event that we're trying to throw, and it's gonna be fun with the fire department. We've done a lot of events versus the fire department. We've lost some, we've won some, and actually I organized a flag football game with the Holt Foundation. If everybody knows the Torrey Holt from NC State and his brother, they have a foundation for cancer research, and they host this huge flag football tournament over at the NC State football practice fields. And so I organized a team we joined with the fire department for the tournament, and we actually went undefeated. We went 3-0. So pretty cool experience. It was awesome. Everyone, of course, figured out that we're the first responders, so everybody's trying to beat us, and it was fun. So we went 3-0. Awesome experience. We had guest coaches that were NFL players or still are NFL players, and they got drafted, and we drafted one former Philadelphia Eagles player. Delani Baker, I don't know if anyone knows him, but either he coached us, and it was awesome. It was a great time. We went 3-0, so good time. Yes. So a lot of events going all over the county and city.
What question?
Yes, sir.
What question? I was at a different CAC meeting where we were trying to assess the safety of the neighborhood around the development. And the local officer put up, I guess it's an incident map where you can track different types of incidents. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, I'm sure we have the same thing for our area. I'm just curious if there's any particular area around here that gets more problems than other areas.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, and if that is something that you would want next month or in future meetings, let me know ahead of time. I mean, way ahead of time, not the week of, because that takes a long time to print out or at least put up an image so I can put it on TV. But yeah, there's of course hot spots that we're looking at. Perry Creek is, an area that we're looking into, and a lot of the times right now what we're focusing on is the homeless camps. There's a few that we're trying to, get some resources and get Acorns involved and get them to help, but it's hard to get people help that don't wanna be helped, that we're trying to coordinate with that, Captain Lockhart, our district captain, she's really, really into that and has helped us amazingly, trying to get the resources to them. But we try to get them out of private property, they go somewhere else, so we're trying to kind of get them together and see what we can do for them. But that's a hot spot, and those are the things that you would see because there's trespassing calls that come in. Sometimes there's drug activity calls that come in because of that area. But that'd be a good idea. I can do that for April's meeting.
Yeah, that'd
And
be
bring a
great.
nice map. Oh, yeah.
In their
absolutely.
case, it was really ironic because they were trying to have a development right near where the corridor station was going to be. And
Mhm.
right next to that station is an area you wouldn't want to walk through.
Ah.
With very high incident
Yeah, yeah.
rate of different crimes.
Mhm.
And I don't think either one's gonna change, so we'll see.
Wow, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'll look, remind me when you said
I'll
the
do
minutes for next month? I can definitely get that going, have our crime analyst reports sent out, and I can download them and bring them over here.
That'd be
for sure.
terrific.
Yeah, for sure, no problem. Yes, sir.
I got in here late, so this might be ground y'all already went over, but you were talking about bike lanes. I'm curious, someone's coming down, next to a bike line, a car and a bike, and this car slows down to take a right turn, and the bike guy is coming up, and the bike guy hits the car. Who's at fault in that type of accident? And you may not know, but. So- I've known a couple instances where this happened.
There's not a stop sign, there's not a light.
No,
It's just a bike lane going straight.
A stop sign, the car would stop. The car.
They're making a left turn,
Yeah,
from
a
the
right turn, a right
a
turn.
right turn,
Where he's crossing the bike lane's on the right,
so he's going like
and
that.
he's taking
Yeah.
a turn and the bike.
The bike
plows
has a
into
right
the
of
side of the car, and the car may not even be aware that the bike is back. there,
Yeah. The bicycle has the right of way.
Okay,
Yes, the bicycle,
so you gotta watch for that.
you have to watch for that. Anytime you're making a turn, you have to yield. If you're making a left turn across the intersection or a right turn and you're in that lane, you have to yield.
Okay.
You yield
So
to
straight on
somebody
track.
behind, you yield to somebody behind you?
Well, I mean,
He's talking about somebody coming up from
Yeah,
behind you in the bike lane.
So the car's in front of the bike.
Mhm.
And it takes a right-hand turn, and the bike's coming up the bike lane and runs into the side of the car, but.
but how did the car end up in front of the bike?
Well, it drove past it.
So he knows the bike is there.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not arguing either, I'm just curious as a.
I don't make the rules, I'm just letting you know,
Yeah, yeah.
what's common sense.
You're gonna
If he
be
drove
short
past the bike, he knows the bike is there.
The bike guy would share some, if you're just talking, but I'm curious of what the law says.
Yeah.
but To me, both people ought to be responsible.
Well, the bicycle's going straight ahead,
Yeah.
right? The bicycle is going straight ahead. The bicycle doesn't have an obligation to stop because they're going straight. The person that has to yield is the person making a turn, whether it's a left turn or the right turn. If I'm driving a car and I'm passing a bicyclist and I'm gonna make a right-hand turn 50 feet down the road, I have to yield to that bicyclist because I know that he's coming. You see what I'm saying? And me stopping to make, or slowing down to make that right-hand turn, doesn't mean that the bicyclist is gonna stop. You have to yield. It's just on a straight street.
Yeah,
Straight.
straight.
There's no stop
street.
sign.
I mean, I'm not arguing either
No, yeah,
way,
yeah.
but, I was just-
It's like a pedestrian. If a pedestrian is at the corner, right, and they get the right hand to cross the street, and there's a car making a right-hand turn, and they have a green light, right?
Yeah.
Right, who's gonna yield? Who, is the pedestrian in the wrong if he hits the car, or is the car in the wrong?
But the bike is another vehicle. If I overtake you on the right because you're turning right, then it's my fault clearly. I can't overtake a vehicle that's making a right-hand turn. I'm car 2 behind car 1. I can't overtake car 1 on the right and pass him when he's trying to make a right-hand turn, which is what that bicycle's trying to do.
But the bicyclist was turning?
No, bicycles.
Bicycles
go
going
Oh,
straight.
straight, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna be short of bicycles soon, but fair enough.
Yeah, if you're, anytime you drive a car and you're making a turn, a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn, you have the responsibility to yield the right of way, not a vehicle or a bicycle going straight ahead. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Anytime you turn,
well, with pedestrian, it makes perfect sense.
yeah, or car to car, or car to bike, if you're turning, you have to yield the right of way.
Okay, yeah.
That makes sense for me coming at me or going across, but from behind,
It's not from behind, because you passed the bike.
Mhm.
You
he's
passed the
down
bike.
behind
Well,
me.
you might be at a stoplight and then taking your right hand turn, you know, so
I'd
it's.
say drive cautiously.
Well, in my mind, responsibility is on both individuals, on any type of situation like that.
And the best you can do is be careful both ways, right? Be careful both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I drive like it's all my responsibility.
Right.
You got to.
Yeah, you have to, of course.
I got a clarification
Yes,
on
ma'am.
it. All right, so they've gone around the city and they've narrowed some of what used to be 2 regular car lanes by making it 1 car lane and taking away the right-hand side. And you're coming up to, there's no bicycles anywhere.
Mhm.
And you're coming up to an intersection and you want to make a right-hand turn.
Okay,
Now, the markings that are on that bike lane, you know, it's got the bike lane thing down through there, but then when you get close to the stoplight, it becomes
the dotted line.
the dotted line
Yep.
thing. Now, can you pull next to it and take a right-hand turn?
Can you
Or do
pull
you
on-
have to wait in line now along because they've put the bicycle lane that nobody ever uses, and I've never seen a bicycle as many times as I've been down there.
Right,
And so now I gotta wait behind all the traffic while the light is up there and I could have turned right.
the safest thing to do is not pull onto the bike lane, is to stay off the bike lane. Because that's the solid white line, right, that differentiates when you're crossing
Yeah.
over.
But when you get close up there,
When you get close, I mean,
can I pull next to the other car and make my right-hand turn? As long as everything is kosher,
if you see your way safe,
thing like that.
yeah, like if you
I
see
didn't
okay, there's
want
not,
to
there's not a bike
violate
coming.
some wall by going
No, but
across there and making my right.
But again, you have to, if you see a bike, obviously, you're not gonna make the right turn, because, once again, you have to yield
Yeah.
to the bike. But again, yeah, if you're here and you're gonna make, you know, now, if that's not a travel lane, the way I'm picturing what you're explaining, if you're here, the car's here, and you're approaching that corner that's up here, you're asking me if you're able to drive on the bike lane to make that right.
Where the bike lane becomes a dotted lane.
I wouldn't. That's dangerous. I wouldn't do that.
Because somebody in the real lane might be turning right and you
Right.
might.
Because now you're traveling on a non-traveling lane.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're the second car in line and the only other one is still next to you.
You take the risk.
Mhm.
I'm not telling you how to
I
drive,
don't know what the legality.
I'm just telling you, you take the risk. If you get on that bike lane to make that right-hand turn, and that is not a travel lane for cars, and something bad happens, you're responsible. I didn't say you have to like it, I'm just giving you this.
I don't like any of the bike lanes.
Yeah.
actually. I think the bike
It's
lanes
tough.
are a little
It's tough to
ridiculous.
maneuver.
And what is the point of these, bike things in the neighborhoods? I mean, why are they hiring
broken
somebody to go through this neighborhood up here and paint those bike things on residential streets? I mean, does that just keep somebody employed? I mean, I think that's a waste. What's the point?
I don't know if that's beyond me.
I think because we're so, there's so many people moving here in homes.
Yeah, I found that
Condos
crap.
and the.
And I don't see,
No,
they're
not yet,
not
but
out there in
it'd
the
be nice
streets.
I mean, that's the idea.
I'll say from the city council perspective, we are still in the beginning phases of our bike program, so no, you don't see them right now. So in the future, as we build a more walkable, it's gonna be more walkable. We got people, we have to plan for it. I can't wait for it to happen and then build it. So I
Yeah,
understand.
but everybody knows that the bikes, I mean, there's always kids on bikes and everything else in a residential area. So what is the point of painting bike things on there? Because everybody rides their bike on there anyway,
I think it's a matter of having
So-
a designated,
you know?
a designated lane. Because yes, we do have kids riding all over the street, not just on the side of the
Well,
street.
there's not 2 lanes on these roads back here with
I see.
everybody parking on the streets anyway.
Hmm.
there aren't 2 lanes.
Yeah,
So, you know,
It's tough.
to me, it just, I was looking at it going, oh, you're gonna come in here, you're gonna pay this thing, and then you're gonna paint these. Why are you painting bicycles on here? Everybody rides bicycles on here anyway, if they ride bicycles.
yeah, yeah,
So what's the point? To me, it's a waste of money.
I get it, I get it. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. I saw, I've forgotten about these Capital City Cruiser today.
Mhm.
What's the differentiation between what they do and what you do? And I guess you would work together.
Capital City,
Capital City, some kind of law enforcement.
is it state capitol police?
Mhm.
The state capitol?
Yeah, state capital, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so the state capitol police.
Yeah.
Patrols, the state buildings, the Capitol building, the legislative building, all of the state government buildings. So basically they're downtown or any property, the jurisdiction falls under state government buildings, whereas we're Raleigh, the city of Raleigh.
So if they need to make an arrest, I mean, are they?
They can, oh yeah, they have arrest powers.
They don't have to work with you to do that.
No, right, they have arrest powers.
Same as NC State.
Same as NC
has
State.
their own.
Yeah, there's their own, anti-state campus police
And they can make arrests too.
on state property.
I didn't-
We're Jones Street, I can tell you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good question. Anything else?
Good.
Awesome, well, have a good night. Let me know for the map.
I will send you a
Remind me
note,
for
yeah.
next month, and we'll be back.
Thanks, Artie.
Cool, thank you. Have a good one, take care. This way.
I jumped out of line, there's such a rushing out out here. We approved a motion to approve the minutes, but I never closed it by taking the vote to actually approve the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Anybody opposed? Thank you, minutes passed unanimously. All right, Robert, we have as a guest tonight, Robert Rice. You know, I talk about CACs all the time, but I always tell you, we're part of a larger group, the Raleigh CAC organization. And tonight we have Robert, who is the chairman of that. And there's been a lot of activity since we've met last, so my pleasure to have Robert, and I'll share a screen.
Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Robert Rice. I'm the chair of the Raleigh Citizen Advisory Council, which is basically composed of all of the chairs and vice chairs of all the CACs together. So it's kind of like all the leadership that get together, and it's a little bit like a governing body for all the CACs to give us some structure, some organization, and kind of a way to, I guess, be more organized. Slide. This is a presentation we put together for City Council in January to kind of lay out where we are as the CACs and kind of what we're looking forward to doing or accomplishing in this year for 2025. So for starters, just kind of quick refresh about the CACs. It's a grassroots organization. There's roughly 18, but maybe 10 or so are currently active. COVID was kind of a punch in the mouth for a lot of the CACs, so we're still trying to get some back online and running. We're very much resident-led and driven, as you know, and we try to not be political. Sometimes we are, just as the nature of being a community organization, but we are absolutely non-partisan. But we have a very long history. CACs were formed back in the earlier mid-70s, 1974, by Clarence. Sorry, I can't read that. So we're kind of a unique organization, you know, kind of within the Raleigh history. Yeah, we've been around for a while. A lot of people don't actually know that. Slide. I'm going to try to quickly do these. So we work with city government in the sense that the CACs try to be a connection point for giving, you know, the residents and the citizens of Raleigh kind of a voice, and also as a way to distribute information. Just like the sergeant was here, you know, for the Raleigh police, to give you information and also to hear, you know, questions and comments back. The CACs are a really good methodology for doing that, when in other cases it may not be easy for a single person or an individual to go to the police department or to show up at a city council meeting and kind of get that 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes way to have your voice. So this is a much easier way for us to kind of work as residents together, get our voice together, collect information and share it with city council, and also vice versa. How can we get information from city council and distribute it back to the community? Next. So this looked a great PowerPoint when I first did it. This is a kind of a relationship org chart to kind of show where the CACs are with the RCAC and how we kind of interact with city departments and city council. There's a lot of lines and dotted lines there, but basically each individual CAC is kind of underneath the umbrella of the RCAC. When we try to work directly with the city departments and city council, especially in cases where multiple CACs, share a particular issue, but that also doesn't keep an individual CAC from doing that on their own. And we also try to have CACs kind of connect with other neighborhood organizations to again, kind of collect and collate all this data and information together, kind of in one place. Next, CAC meetings. We're at one now. We probably don't need to explain that. Next slide. So this is a city map of the CACs showing, kind of all of the, the breakdown of all the ones that there are, as well as the ones that are active. We're going to be working on trying to get a lot of the inactive ones active again this year. And there are some opportunities to be creating some new CACs because, over the last several years, we've had a lot of influx of new population in Raleigh. And, it's time for us to kind of revise and look at things and make sure there's a good distribution. Next slide. We did a survey a few months ago, which was, we had an amazing 600 respondents across the city, which was pretty wild. And some of the kind of the highlighted bullet points there's a lot of interest in getting more information, on the city websites. There's a very, very strong preference for hybrid meetings as opposed to only in person or only online. And a surprisingly large number of respondents said they were willing to be involved in CACs and kind of join CAC leadership. So one of the things we want to get done this year is to really engage those people and kind of get them going, because guys like Larry and I could really use some help, and especially if we're lining up new CACs, people need to step up and kind of get involved, and we're very excited about that. Next slide. So moving forward, we have some goals for 2025. Obviously, restoring the inactive CACs is pretty high up there. We want to grow and add maybe 2 or 3 new ones over this year. Certainly grow membership, try to increase by 10%. Again, COVID really kind of sucked the air out of the room in many cases, so a lot of activities down. And we want to kind of get back to where we were before and grow. And we also want to keep cultivating and growing a relationship with the city and other citywide organizations. Bye. We have put together a list of kind of action items or requests for city council. One of the, well, I should probably step back a bit. One of the big updates for this year is we asked city council to appoint a liaison, and Christina is our awesome liaison. And we've just started having monthly meetings between the RCAC leadership and liaison, as well as other individuals from other departments as needed. And this is kind of our way to make sure that we've got a really good line of communication that's opening. We've got a good path to sit down and kind of talk through issues and have good discussions. Whereas if we were just meeting with the entire city council at a city council meeting, there's a very limited amount of time. That's not like a work session, right? It's usually like a report or comment thing. But having a liaison really facilitates a lot of things. So we put together a list of things that we would like help from, or from the city. We're beginning to work through these. Some of these are easy, some of these are difficult, some we can do quickly, some will take some time to work through. But we had to start somewhere, so this was kind of like our ask list. Sometimes too, it's like, I know there's a sentiment among all the CACs, we want to get back to where we were before, years ago, again, before COVID, before other issues with previous city councils. We may not always get back there, and it may not be the same way, but that doesn't mean that we can't pursue the same outcomes and try to find a different way to get there, which is kind of what we're working on. So we'd like to fully restore the CACs, We want to work with the newly merged Community Engagement Office. In other divisions, there's been some changes on the city department side. We certainly want to enhance the city website with more information about the CACs. We're asking for some funding. We want to kind of tap into some of the email databases for outreach, let people know, hey, the CACs are here, this is what we do, we'd like to get you involved, we kind of want to grow. And certainly in other issues too, we want to try to improve technology in some of the community centers so we can do more hybrid meetings and make it a little easier for us. Next slide. Or is that mostly the last one?
No, not quite.
Okay, so that's Q&A with City Council. Let's hit that one. We had a video, it's not embedded here.
I can play it if you want to play it.
How long is it? It's like 2
3
minutes.
minutes, I think.
Does anybody want to watch the video?
I think you guys saw it already, but want to say it?
The amount of enthusiasm.
If you live in Raleigh, you're automatically a member of one of these councils. The city of Raleigh has 18 CACs, each representing an advisory rapidly service the link between the residents of Raleigh and the city government to decide its own activities and priorities. You can attend as an individual or you can represent your neighborhood-based organization at your CAC meetings. All meetings are open to everyone. However, you can only vote at meetings at the CAC when you reside. CACs are nonpartisan. They're the only advisory boards for the city council not appointed by the council. Raleigh CACs are a connecting point between municipal government and residents. They provide a way for the city to share information about government activities and to receive feedback from the community. Through CACs, residents and neighborhood groups participate in decisions directly affecting them. For instance, CACs have a voice in planning and development.
It's actually a great video. That was just the audio. It's a little dated. We kind of want to update it a bit, but it's actually a really good video from, I don't know, several years ago. And then, of course, the final slide of the presentation is basically just a review of the CACs and kind of contact information. I think that's it for the slide presentation. So I just kind of wanted to give everybody a quick update on that. And I'm happy to answer questions as long as they're not about my clients.
So I'm up in the Greystone Lake Park area. Is there an active CAC there? I don't think there is.
Just beyond Midtown CAC.
In North, North CAC, but they
I
have.
think so.
This would, yeah, okay,
Not the
so,
north, it wouldn't be the north.
yeah.
It might be.
The city website has basically put your address in there, I think, and it would tell you.
Yeah.
when you're in.
Well, I'm interested in getting one organized, so do I see you?
No, just, I'll follow up with you on it.
Okay,
I know you're just outside of North, and I think you're just outside of Midtown. But I'm not
well,
sure,
up off of Lead Mine Road,
right?
Lead Mine and,
I think you may be in west,
No, it would,
No.
Northwest would be next to that, because that's mine, and we only
the
went to
northwest.
Great Road.
Like
So-
northwest.
So that's before lead mine, so it
But
would
as
be.
somebody just suggested, I do have a map, and I can actually plug in your address
okay.
and say,
I just live off of Mine Shaft, so.
yeah. Now, my chap is right on the edge of ours.
Well, I went to my first neighborhood meeting in 40 years. So I think I'm gonna end up getting involved in that, but.
Robert, while Christine is here, do you want to update everybody on the recent meeting you had with the city?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. So we, oh gosh, so who was it? It was you? No, it wasn't. It was Michael.
Mike and-
Yeah, Michael, me and Ulysses. And we met with Christina, Nikki, the assistant deputy manager, and Taisha. I can't think of the new department. It's the community engagement department. Okay, yeah.
Taisha Mosley.
Yeah, Taisha Mosley. It's a great meeting. It was the first time we met for this year. And we kind of did a quick refresh on, you know, where we were last year, kind of getting started. This is the first time was with Christina as the official council liaison, which was kind of cool. There was, and I think I sent this out to the CAC. So we put together a bulletin note of kind of our own kind of minutes, I guess is probably for lack of a better term. We had a couple action items. So there's a few things that we need to do some research on, both on our side and also on the city department side. We shared our request list. Things that, hey, this is what we're looking for. These are things that we need. We went through, I think we went through pretty much most of them. And kind of highlighted, okay, let's put these in short-term bucket. These a little bit more of a long-term bucket. A little bit of our research to understand, you know, either which department we need to talk to, or what the process is, or what existing resources are already here, what new resources are needed. You know, all this sort of stuff. I think it was a little over an hour, maybe hour 15-ish or so. You know, it was a good meeting, and it's a couple weeks ago. The next one's going to be in a few more weeks, and we're going to do this on a regular basis. So I was happy with it. And we're also, so at least on this RCAC side, I will always be there, and there will usually be 2 other CAC chairs. We're going to kind of rotate those out depending on this particular topic we're talking about, or whatever, just so we've got a good rotation. Everybody's got a good chance to kind of be involved and have some face time and opportunity to talk about the CACs.
And Robert, did you send those meeting minutes to me? And
yes,
you did. Okay, cool. I haven't checked my email. You said it today because I haven't checked it today.
No, it was last week.
Last week?
I'll check Thursday, Friday. No, you know what? It might have been this weekend. The days blend together.
Yeah.
It was like within the last couple of days.
Okay. I'll assume last 48 hours.
Cool.
Yes,
Got it.
Any questions? Any concerns?
You were personally.
It just, so when the CACs were disbanded, a lot of people had a lot of good reasons for doing that. Have you taken any lessons learned from that? Like, is there anything you're gonna change going forward? Because it sounds, everything I'm hearing is we want it back the way it was. And that doesn't really win you a lot of support with the people who remember the way it was.
So that is a fantastic question. So first and foremost, we weren't disbanded. We lost a relationship with the city, which is different. In terms of, there's 2 bits and pieces here. So one, when I say that people are saying we want to go back to the way it was, that's more about the, you know, the regular meetings, the amount of people that were involved, the funding and resources that were there. All of that was kind of stripped away at that particular time. As far as the other side, there were some deficiencies in some of the CACs. There were issues where some leadership had kind of, you know, become king of the hill and was their way or their highway, and they were there for way too long. There were inconsistencies between bylaws, between different CACs where they were kind of doing their own thing. There was not a lot of communication going on. There were some other issues with people getting ahead of themselves in some of the zoning sort of issues. At the time, CACs were meant to be kind of one of the alternate outlets for public, I don't know, here is probably not the right word, but public exposure. And there were some reports that a few CACs had kind of taken that to, you have to get our approval or it's not going to happen. And that wasn't supposed to be the case that way. So when I kind of first got involved, it was right around the time that we had the cut and everything was kind of a little bit awkward there. So over the last several years, we've been going through COVID and dealing with all these other sort of issues, trying to keep the organization alive. We've gone in and we've standardized the bylaws for everybody. So all the CACs share the same core set of bylaws. And there's like another, you know, minor little piece here for a little bit differences. Some want to have elections every other year. Some want to do alternating years. Some want to have, a co-chair, just like minors, that's that here. But the main core bit is it's common now. And we've put a lot of work into making sure that the RCAC is now a kind of a governing body, as opposed to each CAC literally doing just kind of whatever it wants. So we brought in a lot of organizations, governance, much more communication, collaboration between the leadership and all of those. So we've been trying to deal with those issues. And occasionally, other things pop up every now and then. There's been a few times where, at least even recently, where we've had, video bombing, or we've had people that would come into the CAC and cause problems and get to, shouting matches with people. There was a case maybe 2.5 years ago, where somebody from city staff was not well treated at a particular meeting. That leadership has stepped down and kind of moved on. So we've been working to really address all of those issues. Some are easy, some a little more difficult to do, some take time. But we've not wasted the last couple of years that the CAC has been quiet. So, and if there are any other issues, I would love to hear about them. I know the other CAC leaders like to hear about it too, and we want to be very proactive in dealing with it, because we want to have a organization that is vibrant and that will grow and is run by adults. I'll give you the next one. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Has there been with the reinstatement of the CACs, has there been a good look at best practices? Obviously this isn't the only type of organization for getting, citizen input, citizen engagement, and things like that. So, one of the things I've noticed is that there's a pretty diverse level of engagement between CACs. Some can pack the house, some not so much. So, when working with the city to figure out the new structure, is anybody looking outside to similar sized cities to see what works there? What are good practices in those places that's working?
So I can't necessarily speak for the other CAC chairs or the council or the other departments. I'm sure like the Citizen Engagement Board has done that sort of thing, and there's been some research done there. My own perspective, I did several years ago. I'm actually interested in kind of citizen engagement from a technology and community circulating standpoint. Depending on which city you kind of go to, there's a variety of different structures. Some are much more formalized and are created by the city. Others are just kind of created grassroots. We're one of the unique hybrids where when the CACs were initially formed, it was in partnership with the city government. So we're a little bit unique there. But in terms of other kind of, best practices or standardized, whatever's, it's been a little difficult to look at and try to implement things because we were so handicapped and kind of caught off guard when we initially split with city council. And then right after that, COVID hit, again, took the wind out of everybody's sails. So trying to kind of come back, I think our first step is to try to find a stable foundation first. And this is kind of what we've been working towards. Again, with standardizing the bylaws, getting communications going, establishing a direct link to city council. So there's a good, information flow. And as we have a good stable foundation, then we can start looking at, okay, how can we start growing this? How can we scale this? How can we do things that are better or more improved? Speaking for myself, my own CAC Glenwood is kind of defunct now, but we were one of the ones where, back several years ago, I was thrust in the middle of it when NCDOT wanted to do that big interchange at Crabtree on the Ridge Road. And I was having 200, 300, 400 people show up at a time. So I learned a little bit there in terms of how do you manage a lot of very angry people, all at once. But at the same time too, we have to, it's an organic thing, and sometimes we're limited by the resources and people that we have. But yeah, we do try to pay attention to that. Okay.
So I, communicated with a builder or a developer. They were sort of really negative on it because I guess they had gone through a phase with it where they were doing a project and got bludgeoned by the audience, sort of like what you're talking about there. To me, it's a two-way communication thing. It's just for really getting information, feedback both ways with the city council. So I think it's probably, it's critical that people understand that it's not like a legislative type thing where you're gonna take a vote and then go to city council with baseball bat. And that to me, when you're talking about, developers, that's probably the biggest area where you can get into a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
with it.
So it was, I think that was one of the early problems. People were assuming that it was necessary to go and have that pass-fail vote and that it was a requirement. And with the way it was supposed to be, again, it was supposed to be an alternative to doing, public hearing elsewhere. Go to the CAC, do your stuff, get your feedback cycle with the people. And then the CACs, they would take a vote as a recommendation that the city council could consider, but it was by no means mandatory, it wasn't required, it wasn't a thing. But over time, a few people kind of took advantage of that, and that was where we had some disparities.
Even council members. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. David Cox, Mike Sullivan, Tim Niles, that whole North CAC was an anti-development organization. I was there. I've been doing that since 2015. It was that. It was every bit that, which is why I have the attitude I have about CACs. They're anti-housing groups.
Well, I would disagree.
Fair enough.
Because stepping back, there was such a diversity among all the CACs. So for mine, for example, we had quite a number of rezoning projects, wherever they were coming in. And I would say maybe 90–95% of the time, they all got an upvote. Because we would engage with the developers, we got them to come in. There was usually more than one meeting, and the people were well informed, they understood what was going on. And some of these other cases, I can't speak for issues from other CACs or the housing, other projects. But again, I was also in the middle of one where I had to push back against the state's DOT and, try to nerf that as much as possible. So it's just one of those things where the past is the past, let's try to learn from it, and then moving forward, we're not gonna be doing these, official pass-fail votes anymore, but the CACs are still a good opportunity for a builder to come in and actually get feedback. They really want feedback, they really want to communicate information. A CAC can get a lot more people to show up somewhere than they can by just surprising you with a 24-hour or week-long notice with people within 50 meters of whatever the building process is. So if it's done right, this can be a healthy process to improve building stuff in Raleigh and get that information flow going. But if it's not done well, then you can end up with a case like you were talking about, where people or personalities or biases can kind of come in and really upset the apple cart. And that's not where we want to go. So,
David, I think it's important to remember too, that a lot of us that are currently running the CACs don't have a lot of history running those CACs. So a lot of the problems from the past, we hear about them, but we weren't part of them. Midtown, for example, I don't remember anything even similar to some of the problems that occurred with some of the other CACs. So we're trying our best to find our footing and move forward. To answer your question, have we learned from the past? Yeah, I think we've learned from the past, and we're trying not to make the same mistakes again. Now, it used to be that a CAC meeting had to take a vote on a perspective of a new development, and then that vote would then get taken to the planning commission. Now, in the past,
I know the process. I've been there since 2015.
In the past, they sometimes they accept them, sometimes they toss them out. That's what happened with Kane. They tossed him out. So I think it's important to have a say. I think it's important for a CAC in particular, which represents residents that are impacted by development, to carry it at least forward to the planning commission. After that, it's kind of a catch-all on. So I guess the bottom line is we're trying to do better. And if you have suggestions to how to do better, welcome.
The suggestion, for me, the turning point was council, right? You had Kay, you had Russ, you had David Cox, you had Steph Mandel. When that council, that anti-development council was thrown out, then the CACs lost their power. Right. And they couldn't be what they were, which is little fiefdoms for those council members to stop all housing, all development. I'll note that since Missing Middle came in, and since we moved to a more pro-development stance, rents come down. Rents are heading down in a fast-growing city like Raleigh. Now that we can build everything everywhere, basically, or at least a lot more in a lot more places, we're doing better by our young people, and we're building more housing for them. So I will have this attitude until the day I go to my grave, because it was awful in 2017.
I would say that's
it was awful in 2017.
Okay. I would just say that's a discussion I'd love to have with you at a future date.
Yeah, that's great.
Anybody else?
I have one other
Christina?
question, which we didn't go over in our meeting, but what is your current membership? So when we say 10%, what is that number?
I don't, that's a very good question.
Say that again.
So one of your slides says we wanna increase membership by 10%. So
So
I
if we
said,
currently have 10, we want to add at least 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, but how much is it?
10% would be 1.
but then on your slide, you said you wanna do 2 to 3, so
It's
your
10%
numbers are
of
off.
X, what's X? I don't have an answer for X.
If you have 1,000 members, you want to grow 100, what do you need?
No, not CSCs, but members.
Oh, don't know.
That's a really good question.
So
That's a-
I think we should probably look at that before we set a goal of 10%, because let's say you have 600 members, because you got 600 responses, that's 60 people.
Yeah.
How are you gonna do that? Which
So-
number are you
So
gonna focus your?
the best way to reform that would be to increase participation by 10%. Because technically speaking, anybody who lives in Raleigh, sort of number one. Number two, you could look at the mailing list, but there's a lot of interactive people. Number three, you can look at attendance. And I think that's probably the easiest metric.
Yeah.
Is attendance, we want to increase attendance by at least 10%.
Right, I guess my question would still be like, okay, what's your current average attendance? So what is that 10%? You know, so that's what I'm looking for. If it is based on, if you have 10, you wanna grow by 10%, you wanna do 1, then say 1, but on your same slide, then you say we wanna do 2 or 3. So there.
Well, that's where 2 or 3 CSCs, but the other one was.
Well, I'm just saying,
So we gotta
yeah,
It's
check
a
it.
good question, the metric we should get.
Yeah, I'm trying to be more specific with council or with staff as we get to what are the metrics or the guardrails.
Yeah,
So I'll
yeah,
just.
Yeah, but just to
that's-
turn that around, I mean, how many people come to a council meeting? You
But I'm
know,
not
how many
saying
people-
that we're increasing it by 10%.
No, what I mean is, how many people attend a council meeting? It varies, depending on what it's.
Right, but you can take
Well,
an
the same thing
average
with
over
CACs.
a
You can
month.
work at it.
You can take an average and see like.
Yeah.
It's
It's
possible.
good, it's a good point. There should be a difference. So I like specifics. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Robert. Okay. Now, I can tell you what we were supposed to do tonight, but we didn't do. I was hoping we'd get the budget people here tonight. Council is in the midst of their workshopping to come up with a budget for the coming year. And while I think it's great that the council is working on the budget, it looks like you guys are going about it topic by topic rather than the reality. And it would have been nice if we could have had a direct correspondence with the budget and the budget and.
Fine.
Budget and
Finance.
finance group. Yeah, because I don't know if everybody's following the budget, when I'm following the budget, but let's take Six Forks Road, for example. Six Forks Road still isn't happening. Six Forks Road may not happen, and if it does, again, they're gonna alter the scope probably because of increase in cost. That's one road that's getting a lot of scrutiny. If you look at other projects related to NCDOT, they're being delayed. So it's because the projects are delayed, the money's going to Western Carolina, which is fine, that's the way it ought to be. But it creates new timelines for future infrastructure for Raleigh.
Well, I wanna be careful when we don't mix things, cause Six Forks Road project, that's from the bond. That's a bond project, it's
Two
not part
bonds,
of our
actually.
budget. Our
Two
budget, right, but they're 2 different things. You've got bond processes, and then you've got our budget, which our budget has nothing to do with Six Forks. This year's budget is not having to do with that.
Well, you're gonna get a request probably for another bond to finish Six Forks because the cost keeps going up.
But not for this budget cycle. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're very clear with residents when we're
What
talking
I'm
about
just
this
doing is
budget
using-
cycle. and we're
Christine, I'm
talking
trying to use that as an example. In that, I think what's gonna happen with the budget coming forward, it's important to prioritize where the money is actually going. And I don't think you're on that conversation yet this is already end of March. So you have
about- Sure,
April,
I would love to
May,
describe
and
the
then you have
budget
to make a
process
decision
so
on
that
the
you
budget.
understand what we're going through, which is that this is the city managers. Okay, so let's talk about the budget for a second.
Yeah,
because
you might as well take-
Yep, I'm gonna do it. All right, what happens in our budget is it is our city manager budget. Right now, we see nothing. I get 3 work sessions. I got February, March, April, those 3. The city manager presents her budget request to us on May 20th. We don't get to see anything before that. We did a separation allowance, we had that discussion, and we talked about the comp study in our last work session. Next time, we'll talk about stormwater fees, we'll talk about Raleigh water fees, but if there is a confusion that we see things before that, that's not true. We don't see anything outside of those budget cycles. So we'll have work sessions, whether that's budget or regular work sessions, where we talk about our bonds, because we are, the thought process of what our budget department would like to do with bonds is, instead of doing them over a long period of time, what we did with the transportation bond 2017 and put all those projects in, and we're like, here's a big thing, let's go. We're seeing the results of that. Because in 2017, what it was gonna cost to do Six Forks Road is not what it cost a year ago. And from last year to this year, it's gone up double, almost double. I can't control that. And what we're learning from that in our budget cycles is we can't keep doing these big giant budget or these big giant bonds and then hoping that we'll have all the funding by the end. So what they'd like to do is a more short term, like two-year bonds, which will be smaller, but there'll be fewer projects. What I have said in response to, what we're experiencing with Six Forks is I don't know if anyone's gonna approve a bond moving forward, because look at what just happened with our last transit bond. So there is validity to that statement, and we are having those conversations, but that is parallel to what this budget is discussing. They're two different topics. You've got bond discussion, which even if that's something we want to do, we can't do it yet. It has to be in an election year, because it needs to go on to and that doesn't have to be done until next year. So I just want you to know those are two different conversations, and we're having both of those at the time, and then in the meantime. But at this moment, this year's budget, I can't even tell you what's on it, because we're not told. And that's been the most frustrating thing for me. If you've been to, during the campaign trail, I was saying this, the most frustrating thing of last year's budget, why I voted against it, was because I had no idea until they dropped a 460-page document in front of me what was happening. And this year I asked the mayor, I asked the city manager, can we have a breakdown of what we're talking about? It's like pulling teeth to get information. So the budget cycle, as you may view and you may hope that council is digging in deep, that is not happening. So I just want to be level set with you. Yes.
Can I finish what I was trying to say before you go on?
Sure, go ahead.
Just want to finish what I was trying to say before. In terms of cost increases, okay, Six Forks Road is an example. The same thing happened with New Bern corridor, whereas you put out bids, nobody could meet that bid, everybody came in higher. So now you're gonna turn around, not gonna stop the project, but you're gonna break the project down to spend the appropriate amount of money per section to get the corridor up and going. And correct me if I'm wrong. All I'm saying is, it's just pointing to a different way of looking at projects that are already in existence and paying for those projects. And I don't think continuing to depend on bonds, debt financing is the way to go. And as the other point that you raised, which is the same point that I try to raise, is you're already so far down in the cycle of time because it's being presented to you in pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting to the point where you have to make decisions yet. You mentioned the severance allowance for the firemen.
Mm-hmm.
It was discussed,
mm-hmm.
but a decision wasn't made. The decision still has to get made.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with the compensation study. Compensation study was completed, and that was supposed to be the decision that had to have before deciding with the severance pay for the firemen. Now both are done, yet the decision still has to be made somewhere down the line.
Somewhere down the line, right? Because in work sessions, we don't take votes. So
how do you change? So my point is, how do you change it? How does council change it to start taking a more austere look at the budget rather than having to go through all these different workshops at different times?
Sure, so it takes 5 votes. It takes 5 votes to change any process, and we don't have it. We don't have the votes to demand that the city manager do it differently. When we hire 3 positions. That city manager is in charge of running the city. That is the professional that does that. We as council are not the professionals. We're a part-time council. I'm sorry. Sorry.
It follows you.
We're a part-time council, so the illusion that we are in the weeds in every budget decision is an illusion. We're not in that process at all. So in order for us to be more active, in order for us to learn more information, that brings up the next part of the conversation, which is, okay, you need a more full-time council at that point. At what point are we gonna do that? Because we're a city of 480,000 people, and we need to be able to have intelligent conversations, be able to answer these questions. And I'm telling you right now, in the 2+ years that I've been on council, this is not a process that is very helpful and fruitful.
We
So
do not need NCGA approval to become a non-manager led council, like to change the structure of how the city
I
is
don't think we
administered.
should change the structure.
No, but if you wanted
Yeah, If
to,
we wanted to, yeah, that,
you would still need NCGA approval.
oh, for sure, and that would never happen, but
It's just a
yes,
question.
we would need, and there are things that we don't need NCGA approval for, which is making us full-time. We don't need the
Fair
general,
enough.
the General Assembly's approval for that. The North Carolina General Assembly, so your state legislature, I'm sorry.
So, I want to make a statement, but also ask the question, because that raises a question.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I've observed a lot of the city council stuff, obviously, and, my notion is what's basically being said here is that you guys are really in the dark about a lot of stuff, and I've watched meetings where they, like with gap pay for the firefighters, where there's a manipulation of what you guys are being fed, and along with the rest of us too, by the way. And so I guess my question is this: what does it take? To me, I want the mayor to be able to fire. No, I'm not saying this one, but to have the power to fire the city manager.
No, it takes
Okay.
five, takes five votes.
The mayor doesn't have that power, do they?
They do not,
Who has that power?
5 counselors.
Five count, okay, so that's.
Everything
what I
takes
thought.
5, it takes the majority of council.
So, in essence, you guys really, are limited here as your power to run things, so we're really more being run by a city administration than we are.
Which is the government we have. So it is no different from what we are doing. We have a city manager, a council manager form of government. There is nothing nefarious in that regard.
Well, I'm talking about, I'm not saying it's a great arrangement, because you have unelected, the balance of power is to some extent over here with the administration. It's not elected with the city.
I mean, that's up for debate, because having somebody that we hire, we're hiring professionals who study this.
It's the same, it's a corporate structure. If you have a board of executives and a CEO, we run it just like any major business is run. It's identical. And for all intents and purposes, you have our board, and they can make the tough decision of canning a CEO, but you usually don't do that. They hire the CEO, so if there's a problem with CEO, they own it, but that's broadly the structure of our government, and that doesn't change without the NCGA, because this is a Dillon rule state, which means cities and municipalities only have the power given to them by the state of North Carolina.
Exactly.
And so many people don't understand that, but if you don't get that point, then there's no point in having any conversation about it.
Well, and that's
So
where I
is
think
there
residents.
a requirement that you do it, that the mayor doesn't have executive power?
Yeah.
Is that part of the
In our
guidelines of the
charter.
state?
It's the
In our
charter.
charter.
That's how the state,
Okay.
that's
No,
how the
that's-
city's been put together. It's the way it's always, I won't say always been.
I don't think it's
Very
a
good.
good way to have a committee with the executive power.
I mean, I think
There needs to
that's
be an
opinions that
individual.
people can have. Right now, this is the government that we have. In order to change it, it would take more than just this
Yeah, no, I
council.
understand,
So
I
that's
understand.
more, but then it goes into, I agree that, I mean, if you have what's called the strong mayor form of government, which is like New York City, or Orlando, your bigger cities are usually strong mayor, then your mayor is in charge of everything. And I don't know.
And there's
sometimes
never
the-
corruption there,
There's
like
never
Chicago or any big city, you never see anything go wrong there.
There's always something to
Yeah,
give, you know,
no, those are always wrong.
you can't
But
say
the
that any
difference is
elected
you elect
official
the
is
mayor.
going to be the perfect runner of a city. Like they don't have all of the qualifications to run a stormwater department and all that as an elected official. It's not this trophy, you know, so that's why I think council manager reformed so that you had professionals who studied this and who could have those conversations, and then you had the board direct them. That's why we were put this way. So I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I want you guys to understand it. You know, I want you to, because when you don't, you think, oh, well, council needs to go into this. We don't go into every department's budget. We don't. And that's by design, so that we are not in it and pushing our ideas on how we want the Parks Department to run or whatnot. So there is method to the madness of it. Could it be clearer? 100%.
Well, here's why I don't like the way it is. I'll just use this as an example. When the Christmas parade went, okay? Was that the mayor's decision? Was that the city council's decision? Was that the city administration's? No one's to blame here.
The city
It's just for
administration.
2 years, the Christmas parade gets shut down. And you can't hold, who are you gonna hold accountable?
Well,
on
it
that?
was
In
very
fact-
clear,
in
it was
fact,
very
it's-
clear from the get-go
the
that
city
that was
manager.
the city department. They denied the permit, that's been from day one.
Well, I know, but, I didn't elect them, okay?
Right, but you elected a council that hired a manager who then hired them. Like that, it's not like they just came to work one day and just started working without being asked. Like, there was a whole process that they went through, and we had professionals there. Did they make a wrong decision? Maybe so. I'm gonna give that to you. I was frustrated. I was more frustrated that I learned about it late rather than it actually happened. Because when I can get all of the information as to why, when we talked about the young woman who died the year before, we had to talk about all the reasons why. It just wasn't cut off to be cut off. I could have supported that had I been told and been kept in the loop, which is what, as a resident, I'm gonna finish. As a resident, I would have appreciated. And I made that very clear, multiple times. A few of us made that very clear. Now, did that translate to what some residents want of the city manager being fired? No, because it was a mistake, and we're working on it, but we have to get beyond mistakes because we're all gonna make them. And we can't hold on. I talked to CACs, and I said, we can't hold on to 2020. We have to move forward. I'm gonna tell you, you can't hold on to the Christmas parade. We have a Christmas parade now. So now it's back. So we gotta be able to move on and let go of things that may or may not have been.
I'm just using it as an example, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. In fact, I want you in a better position to be able to do your job.
I just don't know what that answer is.
Well,
It's a different opinion.
I
So
don't like the way it is, because the city manager, I think, has way too much power to manipulate the situation. Here you are with a budget that you gotta vote up or down on, and you're not gonna really know what you need to know to make that proper decision, which really ought to be ahead of time. That ought to be all worked through and, everyone.
what I would like to see moving forward, which is what I asked for this year and didn't get, is more clarity on what our budget discussions are. I don't know that I need to be involved in what happens in internal audit. Like, I don't know that that's where my time as a part-time counselor should be, but I do think that having the police budget, which is the biggest expenditure in our entire budget, we don't even get a presentation on. I'm not saying I don't want to give the police money. Of course I do, but I have to be able to tell people who are yelling, why are you giving police more money? Blah, blah. I need to be able to tell them why, but I can't because I'm not told until that budget comes out. And so that, I agree with you. I don't know that I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater to get that. I think there are middle ways that we can get there. And one of those would be more clarity. So yes, I agree that there needs to be some more clarity from the city manager's office.
Yeah, I'd like to see actually approach it a different way altogether, instead of making decisions per se for parts of the budget, and coming to a result at the end that you have to increase the tax base to get more revenue. I'd rather see you set the goal and say, this is where we're gonna be. This is our target here. We hit the people very hard last year with a tax increase. We're not gonna do it this year. Let's get everything to fit in this window.
And I will say that is conversations that the council has had, just offline, not in a public setting. But all of us are like, we very much recognize that we took a big hit last year with the county and the city, and that is not something. We are definitely looking for revenue neutral. And then we have these requests for separation allowance for our fire department, which is hitting on public safety. So those are things that we need to be able to present. But to your point, which is very well taken, yeah, we talked about that in the work session with no end date. No, like, okay, when do we follow up with that? And I have no idea. I talked to the mayor about it just the other day, and she's like, yeah, I don't know when that's supposed to come back to us because we're not told. So that's the cleanup that I think needs to be done. I think it can offer more clarity for residents if we could have conversations that actually ended and hadn't ended, aside from rezonings. So.
I'm sorry, we didn't mean to put you on the spot, Christina.
I'm here for
Well,
this
I
is my
was trying
job.
to give you
All I was trying to do for everybody's benefit to say, this is, in my mind, would have been the perfect time to have this budget conversation. But the budget people and the finance people decided that their focus is on getting everything to the council as a higher
Well, I
priority.
think they decided that council finding out wasn't that important either.
Well, yeah, so I'm gonna push back on that. So we had the dam people here last time. We talked, you have stormwater, discussions coming up.
Mhm.
So you assume 400, even 500 homes in this area, because it's not a destination park. There's 750 a month over the next 25 years. Won't even come close. It won't even pay 20% of what that dam is gonna cost. So here you now have this very well-to-do neighborhood as it, because we won't upzone it, heaven no, we have all these McMansions going in. So this area is gonna be subsidized by the rest of the city. And perhaps unfairly, considering how wealthy this neighborhood is, they're gonna get 80% of their dam paid for by me, people in Southeast Raleigh, everybody else. So the question then becomes, if you care about the budget, why should this area benefit? Maybe we have them pay double on their stormwater fee in this neighborhood.
Yeah, but let me just correct you a little bit. That line item to fix that budget has been in the capital improvement projects for at least 5 years, 5 years.
I don't care how
Now,
long it's
wait a
been
minute
there.
now, but then they're carrying now a new cost forward to do the project the way they want to do the project. Who inflated the cost?
Again, Larry, any way you look at it, 5 years ago now or whatever, the revenue generated by this neighborhood will never cover the cost of that dam. It wouldn't have 5 years ago, it won't 5 years in the future. This neighborhood is going to be subsidized. This is an older, wealthier part of Raleigh that is going to be subsidized when that dam goes in by the rest of the city. That's a little bit of a concern to me. And the way you pay for that, as I kind of alluded to, is you can either upzone, so you draw in more revenue, or you make this neighborhood pay more in their stormwater fees. That would be the fair thing. If you want a fancy new dam for your nice park in this rural community, which is fine, it's a nice park, but it's not a destination park, it's not generating revenue for the city, then this area should pay more of the cost for what they want. That would be fair.
David,
The problem
let's be
is- the problem is-
realistic, the reason they're fixing the dam, because the dam may break
And it's a
and
30
flood out the properties around it.
The dam is a 30-year-old.
Okay, again, you're still not understanding the point.
No, I get your point.
You guys aren't able to afford it. This is the
I agree
infrastructure
with
how
you.
city
I-
is
I'm
built.
not even- I
This
agree
is the
with
point
you.
of Glenwood South. So again, you have this area, again, that is gonna benefit, and this is not a neighborhood that deserves the extra benefit and extra nickels, to be quite honest.
I didn't design the neighborhood, I didn't design the dam,
But-
I didn't design the
So
pond.
let's upzone it. So let's upzone it to cover the cost. So over the next 20 years, when we have this as R10, when we have the additional development going up around it downstream and upstream, and we make sure nothing gets built right next to it, let's upzone it so the revenue pays for it. Let's make the area financially sustainable. The only way to do that and pay for that dam is to upzone this neighborhood like you wouldn't believe.
You're presenting a case for a municipal service district, where all the businesses in the area pay more to support the projects for the area. That's
Doesn't
the
have
other
to be
side
the
of it.
business. No, the residents pay for it too. You mix uses. There's no reason that 4-story condos can't be going up in here.
Right, but residents don't pay it at all. They don't have to pay it at all, is what I'm saying. There are many models to pay for that dam long term.
And it's always anybody but a resident, which is the problem with CACs, sir.
It is a good point, because over in Greystone, we've got to pay for our dams.
I know. But David, you're giving me great topics for the future.
It's always somebody else pays for it. It's
I mean,
never
I
the
think this
homeowner.
is a really fascinating conversation, because, and if you go back to our council retreat, we touch on it with annexations. When we talk about annexations, we had we had about 6 departments, public safety, which includes solid waste and water, come and say, please stop annexing, please stop. And we were like, why? And they were like, because we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources, we can't do it. And then 3 weeks later, we had 242 acres in District B that was annexed, after every one of those same departments said, don't do it in the staff report, and they still got approved. What that does is all of that sprawl that's gonna be built there is going to be subsidized by, if we're looking citywide, to David's point, by the higher, if you have higher density, they're gonna have a lot more revenue than this sprawl that we just created. And so we need to be able to have this conversation with residents and say, here's the financial outlook, which in every annexation it is. There's a 10-year fiscal analysis of this. Now, there are some areas where we did try to do that. We went to 17 townhomes, and that fiscal analysis over 10 years was under, it was down, it was negative. And so it was 17 townhomes here, 50,
Yeah, no, they can't be isolated. They can't be they have to be.
But that's what's happening with it. So I'm just saying, like, it's not just blanket right or wrong either way, because there are some examples there. And then if you looked at that 242 acre site, in 10 years, it's got a positive of 2.5 million, which sounds, oh, that sounds good, it's in the positive. However, that's not gonna cover all the things that need to be built to send all that stuff out there, to send water. I mean, it is far outside of our
Well,
jurisdiction.
should the developers have to pay? Yeah, I know they pay for what's in their
That's all they,
development,
right, and we,
but-
because we're the city saying we're gonna annex, we have to create that link. So that link that gets created is
So,
not.
so we're
To
going
your
to
point though, it's not the development when it goes in, it's 20 years down the road, like this old dam. It's what you build, if it isn't built sustainable for 30 years in the future, then it doesn't work. If you don't allow this area to naturally develop north of Millbrook and become townhomes and condos and areas that will generate more revenue to pay for that, then you basically end up bankrupt, or you end up with cities that subsidize older, whiter, wealthier neighborhoods, to be quite honest, at the expense of sprawl, which is environmentally damaging, and severe fiscal impacts on cities. And that's why when you gather up, sir, 50, 60 old white homeowners in a room and let them vote on development, it backfires financially. It's horrifically bad for the future of cities. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand why the CACs were blown up in 2020.
There is no shortage of things that we fund in this city that we don't use. I don't use schools anymore. I haven't had a cop to my house and, no, it's not important. I haven't had the fire department come, but they're there. I haven't used an ambulance. This dam, okay, first of all, it came about, it was turned over to the city in the 70s. It was breached during Fran 30 years ago, which means it was a problem that needed to be addressed. So it's a city park, it's a city thing. At the same time, if you look at what North Hills was, you look at what St. Albans was, it's totally transformed. There is an incredible amount of new revenue coming in here in that regard. And the people that use this park come from actually a fairly diverse area.
That's fine.
We have-
Again, I know you're taking it personal, and that's fine. The dam in North Raleigh is gonna go away. There are ways, the point is when cities grow, they grow their areas so they become economically sustainable. It's hard for people to admit that they live in an area that is not financially stable, that is not in the long-term interest of the city to exist the way it is. It's just hard. It's hard to admit that, hey, because I benefit too. I live in an R6 area, and what I take out, what I pay in tax revenue, in no way, I am aware of the fact that I pay less in taxes than what I use in city services where I am. I just accept that. I'm getting over on the system, but I'll at least admit that. I at least will look at the numbers and admit, hey, this is working out well for Dave Ballmer. But if you're gonna have the idea that, that somehow, you should only have to pay $900,000 on a $6 million dam, I'm just telling you, it's probably not fair.
I don't wanna scare all of you, but one of the things I watch for the budget is the percentage of the money that supports the city, residential versus commercial. Right now, residential is paying more than commercial.
Okay.
And it's continued that way for quite some time.
And if you watch that Urban 3 video and you look at Durham, where they looked at Durham, townhomes, duplexes, condos, what doesn't cover in a per acre value is single family housing.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it as residential for the city of Raleigh. People living everywhere in the city of Raleigh. Your residential tax base is going higher. And you're gonna reach the point where when residents start to support a city, people will leave because the tax burden is too high. Then Raleigh will start to decline. I've come there. I've lived in New Jersey, perfect example, where they pay 80% residential taxes to support a small town. Can't live that way. People will not survive.
You can't survive with suburban sprawl. Single family housing is it.
Good topic for the future.
Again, you look at Urban 3, look up Urban 3 later. They do the tax revenue. It's Joe Minicozy. He's based in North Carolina. He does cities all over the country. He looks at the per acre generation of residential,
All right, send me
single
the
family housing.
reference.
Yeah.
Just send me the reference.
It's stuff that I think we all need to understand as we grow, and how do we have these conversations where we're not vilifying each other either. I don't think anyone came in here and moving to the city to say, oh, I wanna screw Raleigh over, so I really think we need to take a step back and understand these are really complex problems that we need to base in education, because a lot of us as residents don't understand all of these things. So how do we, as CACs, as the city, in the things we do, come with an education background to say, I need you to look at this 10-year fiscal analysis of this. This is sprawl. This is what it's doing to the community. We need to be able to teach you. Because if you haven't been part of, this is your first time coming to CACs or community engagement meetings, it's not knowledge that you have. So we need to be able to share that so you can have a part of that conversation and help us think of new things to help with this. Because I mean, if it were today, I understand. I mean, when I look at that, I see exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it. But I need to make sure that everyone understands that same thing without beating them up verbally, So that's
You're a nice person.
I know.
That's what I call it, community conversation.
I know.
Everybody has an opinion, everybody.
Well, so there's opinions and then there's numbers that make facts. So
Right.
you can have a conversation if you want. If you want to say opinion, that's fine. You're welcome and entitled to yours.
All right, so what else did you want me to talk about?
Oh, whatever. Now we can actually get to what you want to talk about.
I did, well, we touched on 6 Forks Road. I wanted to bring that up in the CAC because we just got that number back and it's up to 93 million now, up from 56 a year ago million. So to Larry's points, there are that meeting's coming up in May where we'll have a deeper discussion about 6 Forks, but that's really difficult. We can't just make money.
They were invited to the CAC meeting too, and it took me three emails just to get a response. And I still don't have them scheduled to come to talk to us, the neighborhood that initially supported 6 Forks, starting right at the top of Paul. And what I asked him for, before you have your May discussion about 6 Forks, I want to know exactly where the costs went up. I mean, I know what they'll say, land costs went up, but it's more than land costs. I want to know exactly what portion of the project caused the increase in fees.
Mhm.
Was it the amount of the property acquisition that was supposed to be over by now, it's still not over? For the right of way? So that's the detail. I think you'll need to make a decision what to do.
Which is happening in May, which is probably why to say, oh, I want them to come here before May, they're gonna want to present it to us first before they present it to the community.
But I'm
So,
asking the questions for the facts that you're gonna need to make that decision.
and that's fine, but we started off with the saying you want them here before May, and I'm telling you that they're probably not going to come to you before they tell us.
Oh, I know you're not.
So I'm just letting everybody know that that's what it is.
It seems to me with that, it's never gonna get done as long as, I mean, I've been to the meetings.
Sure.
As long as, you've gotta have some sort of escape hatch here that, oh gee, prices went up, so we're not going all the way up here, we're gonna go ahead and do this.
But that's what
section.
we did. That's what we did.
Well,
We
yeah,
value
we did
engineered it
pull back
last
on-
year.
yeah.
And so we did all the
Still-
things. And from that value engineered, it almost doubled. Because of all the things that are increasing in price. This is not the city just sitting on their hands, not doing
yeah.
anything. That's not. So again, I don't want this to be vilifying city staff as if like they've just been out on lunch. That's not what's happening. We have a whole world that's getting way more expensive. And so questions that I'm bringing into this, and I do, if you look at consent agendas, these are the questions I ask. At what point, we set aside a 10% contingency for projects. And so the last question I asked last time was, when do we up that? At what point, we already see that things are increasing exponentially. At what point do we now include a bigger contingency, knowing that costs are gonna continue to rise? There's no way they're coming down soon. And I'm waiting for a response, because that's a big question. That's not something that they can come back and be like, you know what, next Tuesday, we're gonna up it to 50%. We're gonna say 50%. They're not gonna do that. So these answers, I get that they're frustrating. I get that we want answers now, but we're still trying to figure out what the best path forward is. And we're not there, especially on 6 Forks.
I'd gear it back to where you can get something done and then phase 2, phase 3.
And I would encourage you and challenge everyone to please be present and watching that. You know, need to be physically present, although I'd love that, love for you to come down, but it's all of this is online. So watch the video, come back to that next meeting with ideas. If we're not thinking of something, tell me what to do. But us just sucking at our job is not gonna get us any closer to a solution.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying you did. I'm saying of all the things I hear, because I think that when we're in crisis, everyone has, oh, this is what should have been done, what should have, It's always easy to backseat drive, you know, or whatever that analogy is.
Monday morning.
I think you all are making
Monday
decisions
quarterback.
with limited information. That's my main complaint, that you guys are not getting what you need. You don't necessarily have the power to really, I mean, if you don't have information, you lose power, okay?
I
The
mean, I'll
same thing
agree
at
with
the
that.
state level and the federal level. These guys get the budget, like, you know, what they're told to do, they go vote, and that's it. And they don't even know what they're voting on.
And this year, another opportunity to be part of the budget, which we've talked about in past council or past meetings, are our budget listening sessions, which are they perfect? No, they're not perfect. And yes, they start in the fall, or this year they started in January or they started December because of the elections. They didn't want to, so yes, it was a little bit later than the year before, but we had them all over the district to have conversations, and our numbers went up, you guys. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of every district for showing up. My district went from 5 people to 20 people. And so I'm gonna take that as a win, and I'm gonna go, great, let's get them to come back next year. That's gotta be, it's gotta be gradual. I cannot snap my fingers and make things perfect and change everything overnight. It's just not possible. So I need you on the stream with me in that regard. Other than that, budget coming up, the separation allowance, to your point, no decisions were made, and it's been almost 2 years that we're having this conversation, and I still don't have information. I still don't have what I need to make a decision. And it's really frustrating because, as I have said to you many times, I think my first job is your safety, and fire, police, EMS, waters, yard waste and trash pickup. Those are my 5 big departments that I tell, this is what I need first and foremost to make sure you're safe. And we're short-staffed in every one of those departments, every single one. Yes.
Okay, so you said that you don't have what you need to make that decision.
Mhm.
What is it that you need, and who should be giving that to you?
Sure, so great question. So if you watch back that meeting, what you will see is a lot of questions that I asked related to police. So police have separation allowance. And what they've been telling us over these last 2 years is that we need to open up a trust fund and fully fund. So they were giving us this $63 million number in order to make this program for the firefighters solvent. And so that's terrifying. Oh, where am I gonna come up with $65 million? So then the fire department last year went and did an actuary study. And that study came back that they only needed $3.5 million. And so I was like, why are your numbers so different? And so we made them go and do their own, because they said, we can't take their actuary study because we didn't, as a city, call for it. And I said, cool, call for one. And so they did, but it took 7 months to bring that back. That information didn't get to us till January, and then they were doing stuff with it. We didn't see it until March. So there are 2 months that I was like, why are we not talking about this? What's going on? But they said, oh no, we're talking about it in March. We're talking about it in March. And then we get here and I say, cool. The numbers pan out to be, because we did EMS and fire, it was about almost $5 million. So again, I'm like, where's the $64 million? What is this? And so then they're saying, oh, well, we want to have the savings so it's self-funding, so that we don't have to increase, constantly increase rates or property taxes or whatnot. And I said, cool, show me your trust fund for police. Show me if this police has been for 38 years, we've been doing separation allowance. How much do you have saved in there? $8 million. And I went, I'm sorry, what? I thought you said you've been saving for 38 years. And they said, yeah. I said, but the only deposit that I see in the books is $8.5 million. So show me where you've been saving for 38 years. And they won't show me those numbers. That is where we are right now, is that I'm going back and forth and I'm getting word salad of like, oh no, it's over here. And then the numbers don't match when I see them on there. And I'm like, I'm not a budget person. Explain this to me like I'm 5. And it's pulling teeth. And so I'm frustrated because the budget department is not giving it to me the way that is digestible to where I can fully explain it to you. And I'm going through a week and a half of talking to the budget director, the assistant city manager of budget, talking to the mayor and having all these conversations saying, I don't understand if we were able to operate for 38 years on pay-go, meaning we just paid out the benefit as it came yearly. If we were able to operate that way,
why can we not start and operate this way here? Why is that impossible? Why are we saying, acting like we're gonna break our whole city if we do it that way? Especially if we see that it's not even gonna be over $500,000 for the first like 3 years. Like, help me. And I'm not getting that help. So it's hard for me to come and say, oh, here's all this information that is unending, because I don't know. And I don't want you guys to be as frustrated as I am in trying to get all of this, because I do think our staff is very competent and very smart, but I don't understand why I'm hitting a brick wall. And a lot of council is beginning to feel that way. So this is a great time to talk to your counselor and have them explain this to you. You know, I'm here, I'm explaining it, but I'm District E. So your next step should be to ask Mitch. Be like, Mitch, explain this to me. What's going on? Or to reach out to your at-large. Don't forget, you have 2 other counselors. You got Mitch, you got Stormy and Jonathan and a mayor that can also explain this to you. Have them so that you're taking that bits of information and you're understanding from different, don't just take my opinion. You know, don't just take, this is just Christina's experience. Maybe everyone else is having a great experience and I'm the crazy one. Totally possible. Doubtful, but totally possible. So you guys have to do your own research, and I have to teach you how to do it and who to ask, because it's overwhelming for me to just go, yeah, do your research, have fun, when you're like, I don't even know what we're talking about. So I really, really encourage you to reach out to your counselors for questions.
Well, I think you said a lot right there about how the process works from a money standpoint. That was entirely educational for me.
Okay.
And that disparity between those is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. David, go ahead.
About getting too personal, how is your relationship with the mayor? Because the mayor was a treasurer, right? In North Carolina.
My relationship with Mayor
Because
Powell,
so she has, my point being, she has the background.
and she's just as confused. So I'll tell
Okay,
you.
that was like, that answered the question.
That she's just as confused, because my relationship with Mayor Howell is phenomenal. I adore her. I think that she is doing a phenomenal job, and she's letting us lead where she sees we lead best. Like, I just appreciate her leadership completely. And so I have, she's the first thought when I'm like, dude, Mayor Howell, you're the budget, you know these things. And she says to me, I don't know what they're saying. That tells me a lot more.
She has been on council and was a treasurer.
I'm aware. She was a state
Yeah, I mean,
senator
I'm
too.
just, if she is not getting the answers, then I am a little concerned.
And that's why I need you, reach out to her, have her explain that to you, because she is the budget expert there. Let her do that. And when she can't explain it to me, that's a red flag. It's a big red flag for me. And it should be for everyone. But again, when are we having that next conversation to close the loophole on this? I have no idea. No idea.
So ultimately then, whose responsibility is it? Overall, whose responsibility is it to get city council the information that they need in a timely fashion?
City manager.
If city manager is not doing this, why can't you fire the city manager and find somebody better?
You could, but you need how many? 5.
Well, then all of you, why do you not have
Then you
5?
need, because that 5 people don't agree with me. And that's why I can ask till I'm blue in the face and they still don't change their mind. If residents begin asking the questions and demanding the accountability of those, now you can get the answers as to why they're not. Maybe they have a great reason for not going and firing her, but they need to tell you that because they're not telling me.
Because, you were saying that you get a 460-page thing in what, May?
May 20th.
And when are you supposed to approve budget?
So what they'll tell you, what they'll say to you is that you have to have it approved by June 30th. And so we have a budget work session in June, we have 2 council meetings, and you think you have 3 opportunities, but it's all, the last 2 years, it's been done the first Tuesday, or the first meeting.
And you get 1 public hearing.
And you get 1 public hearing, that, but you're only allowed 8 minutes to talk.
So then, what does it take to change that system so that, okay, if your budget thing is coming up, say in January, you need the budgets from these 4 departments. In February, you need it from these 4 departments.
Mhm.
And if they're not there, somebody gets their ass fired.
Still takes 5.
Still takes 5.
It's ultimate
It always takes
responsibility,
5, and
right?
it takes accountability of your elected officials, and that is work. That is work. We can't sit back and hope that your elected officials are all doing the best thing possible. Clearly not. We're not, and you have to do the work. When I'm telling you this, I need you to go do what I'm asking you to do. Contact your representatives.
Well, I think a structure, I mean, you should have a structure anyway.
There isn't even a structure for her review. There isn't even a structure for that. I just took a class at UNC School of Government on March 11th so that I could try and help create, but I need 5 votes to create a format for review. Like, we are so behind. So I hear you, and I hear what you're saying. Yes, in theory, that should work perfectly. We're not there. We are not there. And we are almost 500,000 people. We're a huge city. We should not be here. We should have other things. But I need residents to be involved. And I don't just mean showing up to a CAC meeting. I mean reading stuff. The money happens in consent. And you guys never hear about it. Because the first thing we do at our city council meeting is they say, okay, here's the consent agenda, and we go approve, and there are maybe 30 things, and that's where all the money happens. And you don't even hear about it. So you'll hear Megan, Councilor Patton and I will try and uplift some cool things that happen. If we have questions, we pull those out. But does it mean that I need you guys reading the consent agenda? Yeah, it does. That's what it means. But that's a lot of work, and I get that. So there are so many things, and it's not all gonna be solved at once. The first thing that I was positive that we did, which is switch to 4-year staggered. You cannot have people in 2-year terms here and do all of this and get all the things you want when it's constantly revolving. And so 2026, 4 of us will go to 4 years staggered. Fantastic. My race in E will be 2028. And so at that point, then you'll have commitment of 4 years by anybody who serves on council. And that's going to give you the stability to be able to demand more. But right now, I could be gone.
You got a lot of pushback on that though. I mean, I agree with the decision, but you got a lot of pushback when you went to the staggered over 4 years.
We did, because in my opinion, everyone looks at elections like a pageant. Like, oh, I don't like you. I want that person because they make me smile. Like, but they have to start back at 0. Everything I learned, whether or not you like me, is gone if you get a new counselor. And then you guys get frustrated that nothing's happening. And I go, because you keep changing everybody all the time. And so it comes back to residents and our commitment and our participation in our own government. We're seeing on every level, when we're not participatory, when we're not in it, we lose the sauce. And I fear that that's why we can now turn to each other and call each other NIMBY, YIMBY, and get all mad at each other when we're not the problem. It's the government and how we are making sure that people are educated enough to make these decisions. It's huge. It's a huge problem to solve.
I'm gonna disagree with what you said there. I think if you're doing your job, you shouldn't have to campaign that much. But I'm gonna say this too. The way things are set up right now, you can't fully do your job. And that's the main point I'm trying to make. The way the budgeting process is set up, same thing the state does, same thing the federal government does. There's no way that you can have something and have to make a decision on it that quick. And that gets back to what I'm saying is that the city administration has too much power and you're not able to do the oversight over it. So naturally voters are going to be upset with you after 2 years if you can't do your job.
And you would think, because in that, I agree with you in that regard, you think that if voters were that upset with us, then we would go, okay, well, I don't want them to be mad at me, let me change city management. But if we get changed out, now you have a whole new, then now have to relearn that whole process. So now you're caught up in the sauce again.
In fairness, how
And the city manager still.
this is a relatively safe city. There are a lot of jobs. I mean, aside from the group that comes before you on a regular basis, most people are pretty happy in the city. All in all, it's much safer than most places where people come from. It's much cheaper than
But
anywhere in
let's
the
talk about
Northeast.
numbers, because
Right
you want data, which is very true, and I want data too. We should have 1,200 police officers. We have a budgeted 900. So while you can say, oh, we're pretty safe, are we? Talk to people in Briar Creek about that.
Yeah,
Talk to my hotels up there.
If you wait, it goes downhill.
Just going straight to 1,200 is probably not the right.
Well, that's not what I said.
Right.
I'm just telling you the differences.
The differences are there, that's true, but it may just be that because Raleigh is so prosperous and has a relatively lower poverty rate than some of the other cities of comparable size, we can probably get by with fewer cops. I'm not saying 900 is the right number, but it might be 1,000, you might not need 1,200.
Well, and that's when I
And that
was on
discussion,
talking to my union reps, and they would vehemently disagree with me on that. So again, all of this it's some 50% of my district is gonna want me in office, 49% doesn't want. So you can't just act like it could change with a sneeze. And then that's when you get into new leadership and everything snowballs that way. So I want to help teach you how difficult this job is, because it's not just about up there going yes, no, yes, no, yes. That's what's been done for the last, I'm gonna say the last 10 years, because we haven't increased our firefighters, any positions in our public safety since 2014. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem if we want all this growth, no matter how much you say, oh, we want this, I want 10 stories, I want 40 stories. If I'm not able to account for the growth and make sure they're safe, then I'm not doing my job. And so I'm very critical of the last 10 years of what the hell is we doing as government, because it doesn't feel now, looking at what we're dealing with, that we were governing. It felt like we were playing a game and just going, oh, here, I'm gonna put this much here. And so I've taken the responsibility of knowing that I have to own that shit. Sorry, I have to own that right now, and I'm in charge of helping fix it. As much as I wanna be like, Anthony Farley, what were you doing back in 2015? Why are you doing? I can't do that. I have to own it and now begin to change it. So I can't just add 400 officers. No, I can't, because that would kill everybody's property taxes right now. That would murder you. But can I add 50? Can I add 100 so that I can begin to make sure that you feel that when you call because of a noise complaint, like my 5 Points residents do, because there's loud noise and no one responds, that's a problem. That's a huge thing, when we're becoming more mixed use and we're having more businesses involved in neighborhoods and there's more issues there. We need to be able to respond in some regard. And when you have areas like Glenwood South, like we're talking about, all the ruckus that happens down there, that's spilling over now into 5 Points, you've got all of this, it's a problem. We are actually gonna have a conversation on May 27th in Safe, Vibrant, Healthy Community Committee about growth. Because not only, I don't only mean police, but I'll use 5 Points, that's what I have the problem with. We have private industry garbage pickup that's coming at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so after all of these residents who are here, who have to deal with the loop coming and having late night amplified music that's drowning out there, they can't sleep, right after that, then they have trucks coming, having all the glass crash and everything. And they're sending me videos every night. Oh my God, I can't live like this, I can't live like this. Those are issues that I have to be able to solve. And if we want the mixed use, if we want the density, we have to have answers for those problems, because those problems don't go away just because we want 40-story towers everywhere, and that's a conversation we don't have. We then get into our sides and we say, no, we need growth. No, we don't need growth. And what? I can't have everybody in their corners. I have to have them sit here and go, really, what's the solution then? How do I fix that trash problem? Tell me. We don't do that. We have no space for that. So anyway, May 27th, mark your calendars. Join us, 11:30 in the morning.
27th?
May 27th in council chambers. It's the Safe, Vibrant, Healthy Community Committee from 11:30 to 1. 11 to 1. Maybe get there at 11. I don't know.
Good stopping point.
Anyway, sorry.
Good stopping point. And I labeled the agenda community conversation, and we did have a good community conversation
I
tonight.
think we did.
Some of the topics I wouldn't have thought we would have had, but it worked out.
I think it was great.
David will send me the reference. We'll have
It's
that
there.
conversation.
It's there, and I have to change your email. Look at your email, it should be right there.
Well, I can't do it. I do that now, everybody sees it.
It's only a 4-minute video, you can watch it forever.
Is there anything
Send it out
that,
to the rest of us.
yeah, is there anything that I've overlooked, anything somebody wants to add? Steve, anything on rezoning?
I got some stuff.
Go for it.
So let's see, there's my community connector hat. Am I in the right place? Okay.
You're too close to the owl. Hey, perfect.
Okay, my connector hat is on. The rezoning of 7015, 7019 Litchford, the Z4524. There's gonna be a public hearing on April 1st. And that one, they're trying to go from R4 to R6, conditional use. So the conditions are that the property should not exceed 8 dwelling units, and that the exterior should be 80% brick, natural or cultured stone. And a bunch of tree and shrub type conditions that they're putting on there. Apparently it hasn't been signed off on yet, so they're waiting on that. The deadline is March 29th, so it'll be right before they're gonna have the public hearing. The first neighborhood meeting for 6100 Creedmoor, and the reason I'm doing these is because it's District A, and that's where I'm the community connector for. 6100 Creedmoor was held on 3/11. Some of these things get interesting when we talk about engagement. They want to go from R4 to OX5 for a mix of commercial and residential units. So basically, commercial, they're thinking retail, some workspace, shared workspace, and then some residential units in this. It's interesting because first of all, it's a family plot. There's there's a residence there. Grandma lives there. I met their whole family. And in fact, they were the only ones that showed up at the meeting. Nobody else showed up at the meeting. I met the grandson, the sisters, and the aunts and uncles. Very nice group. But it's a family plot, so that's what they're looking at for it. Next to it, okay, so to place this, it's right across from Jeffries Grove School. So there is a storage facility on the one side of it. There's an office facility on the other side of it. So this is sort of like the lonely little house sitting on the small plot.
There's an oil place in there.
There's a lot.
Right across the street, I think, from the storage. There's sort of a oil change place.
Right.
In there. Yeah.
So, it's basically probably the only residential unit in that little grouping there. Now, behind them all is residential units that sort of back up to the properties on Creedmoor. But anyway, the deal was they sent out the notice to the adjacent property owners. No one showed up. So from here, they'll probably put in their application and it'll go into the regular process. Okay, any questions?
Well, because you brought up businesses, being rezoned for business and everything. I've lived in North Raleigh a while, and one of the trends I've seen long-term is that the parking lots are all full wherever you go. We don't have enough commercial stuff at here to support the population that we have. And it's, at the same time, you look at somewhere like Celebration, where at least half of the stores aren't even filled up. And then they shut down Sawmill Tap Room, which was my favorite haunt. But I just sort of wonder if we do need to zone more commercial just for what we got right now. And I don't know if anyone's got a comment.
I did bring up parking, and one of the things they're thinking about is that they would actually have parking under the structure. So it's kind of interesting, but they're not even close to planning yet. So, this is very early stage.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
We need to be doing some stuff though, but put businesses in.
No doubt. But I'm glad you brought that up because the other thing that is not on my note here, but I will mention that Red Hot and Blue is due to open at Quail Corners on April 22nd. So there you go.
Excellent.
In the old Shell station. Okay. New hat, Parks and Rec had their regular board advisors meeting on the last week. And just some highlights from that. Dick's Parks, the Gibson Play Plaza is very close to a late spring opening. There's also discussion about Forestville Park. Now this is a property that is actually in District B. It's 25 undeveloped acres. They had a donation from a adjacent developer, or a couple of developers of adjacent property. They're going to look at doing a situational assessment, which is sort of like the first step in figuring out what, if anything, you can do in terms of developing that into a park. So very early stage, but it is funded under a donation agreement with local developers. The John P. Top Green has been renamed. It's a community center and a park there. Both are being renamed to the John P. Top Green African American Cultural Park and Center. So that was approved unanimously. One thing I did there was actually brought up the fact that when projects are happening in parks that aren't park projects, okay, so this is sort of like a stormwater project. We had the stormwater project here. not too long ago. When that project happened, there was absolutely no notification on park sites. So if you went to the Eastgate Park site, you didn't know anything about that. And so part of what I suggested was for the regular community, for people that don't follow how things actually work, if somebody digs a hole in a park, you think it's a park project. So the least we could do is turn around and update the park site to say, by the way, this is gonna be going on. And part of the impetus for this was, we had a report from Parks Director that was pretty impressive of the top 50 sites that are visited on the Raleigh, the Raleigh.gov site. 15 of them are park sites. So the park sites are really, really popular. They're gonna look into that and hopefully make some changes. So if something's going on in a park, even if it's another group that's operating it and managing it, you'll be directed to that project site. So that was about it. Any questions? Great, thanks.
Okay, one thing for me, keep it really simple and try to bring us to a close. I don't know how many of you saw the article about John Kane putting in a bid for the property that sits behind the Exchange and 440. That particular property, if you remember, I remember it well because it was the first rezoning that came to my attention when I had just become the chairman of Midtown CAC. Z4521, remember that number. And the reason it was important, it was the first case in Midtown where if you want to build greater than 7 stories, you had to have affordable housing. And we had an agreement with the developer, kind of a collaboration of owners there, which made it a little more difficult. But we had an agreement with the developers to provide affordable housing, like 300 units of affordable housing. Now remember, at the same time, they're displacing at least 300 units of affordable housing to do the complex. Now that John Kane is bidding for that property, those zoning conditions are attached to that property and should move forward with it. However, if you also know John Kane Realty, even though he's promised affordable housing, it has never been built to date, including Smoky Hollow downtown. Still waiting for that next addition to Smoky Hollow to add affordable units. My guess is long-term, it'll probably be a check back to the city. So all I'm saying is watch what happens with that, see who the other bidders may be besides John Kane, and see what they come up with, what their proposal is for the same plot. And that plot also carries the landing for what will be the multimodal bridge eventually across 440, if it ever gets built. Yeah, I know, David, don't laugh, I know. It's another project.
Okay, this property you're just talking about there is up here behind the Exchange, that one that you got involved with.
Right.
Wasn't there also something last week mentioned about the property along the belt line behind the State Employees Credit Union? You know what I'm talking about?
That's another project.
That Kane's folks will take that one over.
Not that I know of, that's another big developer you have to buy. I don't think those two, but I will say the Greenway, which is eventually have to get from one side of 440 to the other somehow, is gonna go through the same property and then up through the Exchange and then back up somehow to Eastgate Park.
And when I'm talking about that project, it's supposed to be about 3 or 4 20-story buildings.
Correct.
Credit unions. And my understanding was that it was promising some affordable housing, and the word came out, and I think just the last week that Kane was going to take that contract over and take it at face value.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. Good information. Anything else from anybody else? Okay, we do have planned presenters for our next meeting through at least June. A lot of the people that I couldn't get for this month have promised me they'll be scheduled out, so I think we'll have some pretty interesting meetings. Follow up on a couple of things David raised tonight. And I think that's about it. I can't think of anything that I overlooked. One of the subjects we're going to talk about pretty soon is the northern corridor. There should be coming to a conclusion about the northern corridor pretty soon, but with everything delayed and the costs being what they are, it'll be interesting to see what they say about the northern corridor.
Are we talking about BRT?
Yeah, BRT.
That's the last corridor.
What's that?
That's the last corridor.
It's supposed to be, the design is supposed to be completed. So it's a question of where the routes can be more than anything else. Especially for this area for 5 points.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up because BRT is a big topic for us as well. You mentioned it earlier that we still haven't found a bidder to build the first leg of it. So, for New Bern specifically, we have that funded, so the money is there to build and finally, well, as long as the bidding comes in within that budget. But I'm really concerned with as we move forward with the next one, which is the southern corridor, then the western corridor, and then northern. So we have all these things in play, and our federal funding, which helps out with that, is not. There's big concerns. So there's concerns for me that if we only are ever able to do New Bern and we can't build anywhere else, then it's not really a system. Then it's one BRT for one area. And so funding is in flux right now for all of that. And it lends into how do we promise connectivity and walkability and all this stuff when we can't even build the first leg.
Yeah, and they're also all state roads. All the corridors that I know of are all state roads. Maintained by the city with their state roads. So if everything is pushed back from a 2030 plan from the state to a 2050 plan, yeah, what impact does that have on Raleigh? So it all kind of ties together, right? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. And like I said, I apologize for anybody missed the Carolina game. Hopefully recorded it. See y'all next month. If there is anything I've overlooked or anything you want to discuss, just send me a note. Thank you.
Maybe everyone.